And it's one of my favorite times of the week where we get to go all legs with the great Tim Legler, ESPN NBA analyst right here on the All City Network, which podcast you got to check it out with Adam Mares. It's ridiculous. It's a hoop junkie. Just it's the best. Good morning, Legs. How's the
What's
baby?
up, man? Hey, are you done with your little baseball talk? Can we get on now with the stuff that really matters? Can we get on? Can we get on? This is the best time of the year, brother. So we finish up the NCAA tournament. That was pretty awesome to follow that to the end, especially on the women's side. Now you got Masters Week. You got the finals of these NBA playoff races and seedings, which, by the way, as I sit here now, I almost had an aneurysm just now trying to figure out all of the possibilities of the way these teams can change spots here in the last two games. It's incredible. You can't even begin to figure out who's going to be seated where for the most part. And then, of course, the NBA playoffs, man, play-in starting next week. So this is the best time of year.
It really is. And you got the draft, the whole thing. It is a great time of the year. Hey, let me just button this up a little bit with the NCAA tournament because Danny Hurley, man, what an amazing coach. And the way they run their offense, the motion offense, it's unbelievable. I was trying to follow it. I did a deep dive. There's a video that kind of broke down their offense. It's astounding. What UConn did this year, it's a shame because it didn't get the glory of the women's tournament, and it's really impressive.
Well, it speaks to my heart, Anthony. It's why I'm heartbroken watching teams like that play. Because as you well know, like I was dying to get a D1 job. I wanted my own program. So many of the principles that they run offensively is exactly how I coach, what I believe in. So to watch them play, it's a thing of beauty to me. And I thought UConn, we always talked about UConn differently. Like it was like, oh, they've just got these guys. They're so physical and tough and they get after you. It's a lot more to them than that. And when you watch their action offensively and the multi-layered actions going on, both sides of the floor at the same time, the number of different separate actions on a given possession, nobody stops. Everything is purposeful and they just force you to have to guard them in a much different way than most teams in the country. And that to me was the most impressive thing. If you go back and watch possession by possession, the way that they operated offensively, it's a thing of beauty, man. It's like a clinic, what they do and how difficult they make it for you to communicate effectively, because ultimately you're trying to force teams to communicate defensively. The more times you have to communicate anything in life, the more communications you force, the more likely someone's going to make a mistake. And that is exactly what UConn relies on, man. And then they do have tough kids, make no mistake about it. And they're very well balanced. Guard play, wings, bigs, they got it all. But to me, it was the nuances of what they were doing offensively that made them so guard. That was a big beauty.
So, I just want to, and by the way, it's never too late for you and coaching. I still believe it. Let me ask you just about the offense. I know we probably need a chalkboard, but can you explain it best you can without a chalkboard, without a whiteboard, their movements? Because it's like they go off the 5-out principle, and then from there it's just incredible movements between all the back cuts and everything.
Well, the biggest thing that they do, anytime they run an action, the ball gets to the wing, they immediately will have a ball reversal to the top if there's nothing there. And it reminds me a lot of going back to the Spurs glory days of what they used to do, where it was just a hard, fast rule. And you'd be surprised. This is going to sound simple. Very few teams do this effectively. When the ball comes from one side of the floor to the top, it has to immediately get to the other side of the floor. Immediately. There's no hesitation. So it didn't matter if it came to one of their bigs like Klingon or their backup big, or it came to one of their forwards at the top, because you generated activity and you had sort of a magnetic reaction to your first action on one side of the floor, and you're going to have multiple defenders flooding to that area. When the ball comes back to the top, the ball has to immediately get to the other side, because you're going to force now teams to overreact in that direction. But because you'll see a lot of teams, that ball will come to the top after you ran something, and then that guy will hold it, or he'll look back to the same side, to the strong side of the floor, or he'll hesitate, or he'll put it down meaninglessly. They didn't do any of that. The ball would come to
No.
the top and immediately get to the other side of the floor into a dribble handoff or a flare screen on that side. And by the time you did that, just watch defensively the way you had teams in this chaotic scramble mode trying to react to that. And usually there would be another ball reversal and it would end up on the other side of the floor. And again, back cut directly into a dribble handoff. What they try to do is force a defender to have to help with a bump or in some way hedge and show for a second because there was some sort of screen run. And then that guy that's helping or bumping, his man immediately is involved in the next action. So you're going to be 6, 8, 10 feet trailing because you had the help on that initial back screen. And now you look up and, oh my gosh, my guy's now coming off a dribble handoff 10 feet away from me. And so they the way that they force you to have to help and immediately get back into recover mode, eventually you're going to make a mistake on that. And they just rely on that. And they got just enough shooting to make it work. Like they're not a prolific 3-point shooting team, but they have just enough that you have to close out hard on them, and they count on that because now they can beat you on a closeout defender, get back into the paint, and continue their action throughout the set. And eventually you get demoralized, and that's when you saw them really close the game out with a lot of that easy stuff at the rim. It's because they ran 3 or 4 actions that they just know you're not going to be able to operate each one of them consecutively successfully. You're just not going to, and they rely on it, and eventually they're going to get something great.
Oh man, what a great way to explain it. It's amazing because those kids are so disciplined to not to, because your point about a pause, a meaningless dribble, all that does is allow the defense to recover and a defense to adjust to what you're doing, and because obviously nothing moves quicker than the ball.
Well, and Ant, you know, I compared it to the Spurs. If you went back and watched some Spurs tape, and I used to do this a lot and break this down, and it had a lot to do with influence the way I coached when I coached my teams of those kids I was trying to get in, college scholarships for. And it's easy to just throw the ball out, let them go in a showcase event. Hey man, what do you got? I knew that we had some players that weren't going to thrive in that environment. They had to have some sort of structure to help them. And when you go back to those days, and this was typical, Tony Parker would push the ball, say up the right side, and he'd come hard at somebody for a dribble handoff, or he'd get a screen on the wing and he'd take it hard toward the baseline. He'd force like a defensive reaction, and then the ball would get swung to the trailer, who typically was Tim Duncan. He would be trailing the floor. And when that ball would hit Tim Duncan's hands at the top of the key on the reversal, he immediately, like lightning quick, catch it and boom, hard attack to the left wing to a dribble handoff for Manu Ginobili. And so right off the bat, you force 3 defenders to react to the initial Parker screen and whoever set that for him. Now it comes to Duncan. You got guys flying to that side of the floor, and he wouldn't take it like straight down the lane or back to the strong side where everybody was. Let's get this thing immediately to the weak side. And now here's Ginobili coming off a dribble handoff, and immediately you created driving gaps and you created guys. There's an imbalance defensively. You got guys flying to close out, and there's all kinds of action now that's available to you down the lane because it's so simple. But you have to, it can't be optional for that player. It's mandated. When the ball gets reversed there, it's immediately got to get to the other side of the floor. That's the whole point. And you see that even when teams attack zones, the way that they'll get a zone to shift to one side, it'll get reversed to the top, and then they go right back to the same side. How many times you see it? It's like, you did not, even if you get nothing out of it, the ball has to quickly go to the opposite side of the floor to force them to shift. Because now when you give multiple shifts, you're eventually somebody's left behind. Somebody's going to blow an assignment. They're not going to get there in time. Too many guys are going to close out to somebody. And then you swing it back one more time to the weak side for a wide open 3. Like that's the way the Spurs did it. And it was a thing of beauty, but you have to get that player to understand this isn't optional. This isn't optional. This is what we have to do every single time. And I used to call it the Spur way. That's what they did offensively. And very few teams replicated it and did it the way that they did it. And that's why they maxed out. Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili were not like first ballot Hall of Fame talents when they came into the league. The system helped them become that. And those 3 guys bought into it. And that's why they did what they did for a long period of time.
Oh, well said. Well said. The great Tim Legler with us. Let's transition into coaching and into coaching here with Nick Nurse. You saw it on display Sunday in San Antonio. There's no Maxey, and he's drawing up stuff. I got to tell you, he's such a it's such a breath of fresh air to watch a coach in game coach, not
Yeah.
just go timeout. Hey, go, we got a rebound, guys. Got a rebound. Like, direct them that you're a coach. It goes beyond just play defense, boys. Effort.
Anthony, how many times have we talked about it, man? What do I say guys are looking for in those moments?
Yeah, you're looking for answers. Yep. Smartest man in the room is that guy right there.
Give
Jim
us
Legler.
the solution to what's happening out there. Like, and look, I'm not going to, this isn't going to be a beat up doc day, but so let's, instead of doing that, let's focus on what Nick Nurse brings to the table. I mean, I thought going back to his early days in Toronto before the championship, I thought Nick Nurse was one of the 5 brightest minds in the game. And I've felt that way about him ever since. It takes a special quality. The top guys, they see 10 players at the same time all the time, like not just in a film room. So you can create a game plan going in. It's a lot more to it than that. You have to be able to watch all 10 the whole time for 48 minutes. I can see everything that's going on outside of where the activity is. And it helps you throughout the game be able to understand and create what needs to happen when you get into timeout. There's 6:50 to go in the fourth quarter, and it's a tie game. It's a 1-possession game. What are we going to do now to differentiate ourselves to make us harder to guard and to be able to guard what I know they're going to want to do and the action they're going to want to create? And that's Nick Nurse is exceptional at it. I'm going to probably get myself out ahead of myself here with this Sixers team. And some of this is going to depend on how these last couple games play out. There's still so much at stake with who can finish where. And the tiebreakers get very complicated. And it's hard to even start to talk about Philly because you don't know who they're playing yet. But I will say this. The way Embiid looks, as fresh as he is, combined with the fact that, and I've been big on this, like for all season, he's playing with somebody that lifts him up as the guy that's his running mate, and the other guys didn't. They deflated him. I believe that, and I'm not going to give him complete, excuse everything he did in the postseason. Some of that was on him. I do believe though there was a feeling of demoralization that would take place when he would see he had guys that he was counting on that absolutely had checked out in terms of their confidence level. And that really affected him. That's not the case with Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey is going to show up. He's going to show up. When you turn those lights up, that kid's going to play, and he's not going to be affected by that. And he's going to outplay most guys at that spot. He's in the 2 slot. Whoever that 2 guy is next to the superstar, Maxey's going to outplay that guy. Most guys in the league, he's going to do that. I have no question about it. That's going to help him beat. And I think the new pieces, man, Oubre, what he brings, Buddy Hield will get better shots now that Embiid's on the court. He's going to have his biggest impact yet to come. Nicholas Batum is going to be a major factor for this team. The way he guards, and he's going to get corner threes. Mark my words, there's going to be games. Nick Batum's going to have 5-6 threes that you're going to need those threes because he's going to get naked looks. He's going to get them, and he's going to make them. And he's going to affect, even if he doesn't, he's affecting things on the other end of the floor to a very high degree. So I look at, getting Melton back is very important to them. So I look at the pieces around the 2 stars, and I just think that Philly has a shot here, man. If they can stay out of Boston's bracket, I think that Philadelphia can make a real run here and potentially be the last team standing against the Celtics if they can avoid playing them in those early rounds.
The Oubre thing is interesting because he's kind of what you wanted Tobias to be from an offensive standpoint. Like he's unafraid to shoot the ball and score.
He's got a fearlessness, and that's what I'm talking about. And look, I don't know that there's a ton to discern the difference between them offensively. In a lot of ways, you could say Tobias is more polished with certain areas of his game. His back down turnaround jumper mid-post game is really lethal, but Oubre's got a fearlessness about him. Again, doesn't mean Maxey or Oubre, they're going to shoot great every night. That's not what I'm talking about, man. You can overcome that. What you can't overcome is that guy that in slots 2 and 3 and 4. You can't overcome those guys playing a completely different style because they're affected by the pressure of the moment. That you can't overcome that. And that's what I saw out of Simmons. That's what I saw out of Harden. They weren't processing opportunities for themselves the right way because they weren't thinking proactively. You're shooting a basketball is an anticipatory act. It can't be an afterthought. Shooting a basketball, whether it's getting downhill and attacking or a catch and shoot opportunity, you're anticipating their next shot and you're looking for it so that when that opportunity presents itself, you attack it. Doesn't mean you're going to shoot great every night. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not even why I've been so hard on James Harden over the years. It's not that he didn't shoot well. It's that he wasn't even processing the opportunity the right way because his mind was fried. That is what is demoralizing to a team, to a coaching staff, to a star player. You're looking at it going, well, how am I supposed to overcome that? And that is what Maxey is not going to do. And I don't think Oubre will either. I think Oubre is a guy that's going to play the same way every night. He's going to have some ups and downs. He's a little streaky. I get it. He's not going to look different. That's what it matters the most to Joel Embiid, man. I'm not out here by myself taking this on. You guys are here with me, and that's why I have a lot of confidence in this team.
So, and the other thing of how Embiid is playing, now, we saw it before the injury, and then we've seen a glimpse of it. And even the other night, now, listen, you can give me all you want. I agree, it's the Pistons or the teams they're playing or whatever. But I'm watching his efficiency on offense, right? Like, look at his ball movement. Look at his passing. Like, his passing has improved. Like, I don't care what you talk about the opponent or anything else. His recognition on a double and it has been much improved. And you see it in his assist numbers. But if you just watch the game, you see a guy that's completely in tune of his offense and his surroundings and his teammates. And I think he's playing just at an elite level.
Yeah, it's amazing the way he's playing right now. And he honestly, to me, what separates him is the ultimate hammer, which is a 15 to 18-foot jumper. He just does not miss. He doesn't miss that shot. It's actually mind-blowing to see a dude that big and strong with hands that are that big be able to shoot a basketball with that kind of touch from those distances. And it's literally, you look up and down the league and you want to take, all the elite players. There's certain things they do that are like, that's their go-to unstoppable move. It's like one of the highest percentage things that somebody can do, right? Whether it's, Luka's step back or Jokic's little floater, in the lane that he shoots that one-legged little floater off the pick and roll. Like, he doesn't miss that shot. You take all the elite players, KD going right for a pull-up 18-footer, like toward the baseline. Like, he doesn't miss the shot. Westbrook back in the day, coming at you with a head of steam, stopping at the foul line like a pogo stick and going up. He didn't miss that shot. You could go up and down. And for me, that's Embiid with the 18-foot jumper, or even maybe 15 to 18. He doesn't miss the shot when he's got space, and it's just the ultimate hammer. The reason being, it's the hardest place on the floor to run traffic at somebody because he's already facing the basket. So he sees everything coming his way, and it's made him a better passer because the one area, going back to his early days when he had some struggles, and why I said they were going to continue to have a hard time closing out series in the playoffs is because running your offense through a 7-footer with his back to the basket as he starts to back guys down is a really difficult proposition on how to close it out because it's hard for those guys to be able to pick the ball up at the right time as a double comes and then deliver it where it needs to go quickly. And to the right, even if that wasn't a shot, it was the right pass that would lead to the next pass, which would lead to a shot. And he really struggled with that, man. And you'd see him cough the ball up, because he picked it up half a count too late. Now he's getting raked and he's losing the ball or he's throwing it to the wrong place. Now, most of the action he sees, he's facing the defense. So if you want to try to run a double at a guy holding the ball in between the elbows or at the top of the key, go ahead, because he's got every single passing lane available to him. And that's why you see teams so reluctant to do it. It's a really hard place to pull that off without leading something directly to a dunk or a three-point shot. So instead, teams live with it. And the problem is he doesn't miss it. He just completely guts you if you allow him to have that shot that many times. And it's really amazing to watch. He's become one of the best shooters in the NBA. And then he goes to the line, doesn't miss. Guys shooting 88, 90% from the line. It's like, good luck. What are you supposed to do? So now it comes down to put all that together, man, and do it again night after night in the postseason. and just let your guys stay in their lane because you're doing what you're supposed to do. And I'm confident he's there now. He's at a place this stage of his career, Anthony, with everything he's been through. He looks super comfortable, man, in those spots. And that's why they've got a great shot. Let's see how this plays out. I mean, there's a lot going on here right now. You'd have to win a play-in game. They're trying to get out of that. We'll see. The big thing is don't end up in 8.
Right.
Seven or 6, fine.
Yeah.
7 or 6 is where you got to be, man. Don't get into 8. Your reward is go play the Celtics.
Well, let's real quick. Last thing. Let's examine the East for a second. So put Boston on its own, spot. Set them aside because Celtics are that good. Look at the other contenders. We talked about Milwaukee and Giannis and Doc and the fact they play no defense. Size up the rest of the field. The Knicks have no Julius Randle coming back. All right. Look at anybody else that you think is dangerous.
Oh man, I would look. I'm going to give you a sleeper team. I don't look, and again, it depends where they finish. But I'm telling you right now, man, whoever gets the Indiana Pacers in the first round, you're going to have your hands full. Indiana is playing great basketball, and they play a style and a pace that's different than anybody else you've played all year. Now it will change a little bit. It'll slow down a little bit in the postseason, and we'll see how that affects them. But the way that they get into their offense as quickly as they do and the way that they space you out, and they've got great chemistry, and Halliburton creates that with his ball moving and making guys better, and he encourages you to run because he rewards you. He encourages you to cut because he rewards you. Indiana's, look, I'm not saying they're going to make, a deep run. I'm just saying, hey, maybe it takes 6 or 7 really hard fought games to get rid of them. They're kind of a scary team. Like, I'll be honest with you, man, Cavaliers don't scare me. Milwaukee was already struggling, and who knows what's going on with Giannis. They can call that a calf strain all they want to. When a dude grabs the back of his leg, goes down, it looks that shocked, and then limps out of the building like that, who knows how long that lasts? And what does that mean for Milwaukee, even in the first round, the way that they were playing? I think they're in deep trouble. Look, by the way, I had already told people prior to the Giannis injury, if Philly could get 7, they're going to beat the Bucks in the first round.
Yeah, you did.
That was before the injury. Now you factor in he's limited or unavailable for some of that series. I would really like Philly in that spot. Like the Heat, they're just missing something, man. This Heat flipped the switch, playoff Jimmy and all that stuff, man. I don't think not this year. Doesn't look like it's going to be this year. There's something about that team that's missing. And then you got the Magic, and I think they showed you a lot here late, because they had a critical game against the Rockets the other night where they had the Rockets and then they got 2 games left with the Bucks. And at the time of saying, if they beat Houston, who, by the way, had just their season was over after that winning streak, Warriors separated. They weren't going to catch Golden State. They're really playing for nothing here at the end of the year. And you got the Magic. They beat them and then they win the 2 Bucks games. They got the 2 spot. That's what they were playing for. And man, they couldn't beat Houston. They don't beat the Bucks without Giannis Antetokounmpo, and they weren't even close in that game. So how much do you buy into the Magic? I thought all year that team played over its head according to their roster. It didn't make sense to me that they were in the top 3 in the Eastern Conference at one point with that roster. So I don't look at them as a real threat. Milwaukee already went over. The Knicks, to me, would be probably the one team you wouldn't want to play because of how hard they play. And I don't think you can really come up with anything that's going to get Brunson off his game. I think he's too strong. He's too smart. He doesn't rely on having great shooting nights. Like, he finds ways anyway because he gets to his spots, even on nights if he's not shooting the ball well. I think he can control a game offensively, and then they just absolutely turn it into an alley fight. So for me, the Knicks might be the team that would be that next threat. I think Philadelphia might represent the biggest threat to the Celtics. The Knicks would probably be the team out of that group that I would say would be second. I just don't buy into the Bucks. I don't buy into the Magic. I don't buy into the Cavs. And I think the Pacers are fun and dangerous, but probably don't have enough.
That's why it's leg day, man. Like, you just rattled off, baby. Big week.
This is great, man. This is great. This is my time of year, man. We got some big ones tonight too. Like every night, these games are so meaningful in the NBA. We had a big one last night, Minnesota, Denver. That was a great game. Denver,
Yes.
Denver ultimately now looks like they're going to lock up the one spot, and that's going to be interesting because I love Dallas, as you know. I love Dallas, but now Dallas is probably going to, if they beat the Clippers in the first round, which I think they will, they're going to end up with Denver in the second round. And I thought that was potentially a conference final matchup. So that will be very interesting if we get there. But Denver last night, I think, locked up home court for the Western Conference playoffs.
Yeah, and you know what? I watched that game. That was a great game. That was
No, that's two teams that laid it on the line, man.
yeah.
And ultimately, it's what I've said about Denver, man. You get them in a one possession game, 6 minutes to go. Nobody in the league gets better quality of possessions offensively than the Denver Nuggets do.
That's
Because
because
of you.
like with those two guys
Yeah.
and like the way they're built, which is so interesting for the Sixers because like you keep talking about with Tyrese and Joel, they're almost better off as a two-man star team and filling in. I almost think that's a better recipe sometimes than having three and then asking the third to kind of,
I completely agree. I mean, look,
Yeah.
it can work. Like it worked for Miami with Bosh, who was willing to completely alter his game and sacrifice offensively, and it worked. Kevin Love did that to a certain extent in Cleveland. But I think a big difference there is, the two guys you asked to sacrifice in those situations were power forwards that weren't going to be primary isolation ball handlers, and that's not how they operated. So that transition was easier to be able to do that. And they shot the ball well enough, and in Bosh's case, extended it out to the three-point line. Love already had that in his arsenal, but it was like, okay, you guys going to be comfortable not running the offense to you in the low post, which is what they got in Minnesota and what Bosh had in Toronto. And they said, fine. When you're asking the two of those guys that are perimeter players to get their thing on their own, and now one of those guys has to sort of take a back seat. Just look at Phoenix. Look at Bradley Beal. You don't recognize Bradley Beal. The guy averaged 31 points a game in Washington, and now you watch him because he's not a point guard, but he doesn't get nearly as many opportunities. And you're going, okay, well, how's that exactly going to work? He's not going to be able to alter his game in a way that's going to fit with the spacing. And that's what those two bigs did. Other teams have had a much more difficult time replicating that. So we'll see, man. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. I can't wait, though, until we get to Sunday night about 6 o'clock when all these hypotheticals are gone.
Yes.
And we know who's playing who. And starting with the play-in next week.
I love it. We'll have you on early next week to go over all of it. And you're the best, buddy. Hey, man, I love our basketball. It's like we go to basketball school with you. It's fantastic. All right. I love it. That's
Appreciate you, brother. Love our conversation,
camp.
man.
Yeah, thanks.
Absolutely. Hey, oh yeah, real quick, by the way, just so you know, because it's registrations are just flying right now. Tim Legler Basketball Camp. If you're interested, South Jersey, man, go to the website, timleglerbasketballcamp.com, because we sold out every session last year, weeks out. From it's late July, early August. Go check out the website, timleglerbasketballcamp.com.
You might have to add another week. You know that.
Well, everybody's begging me to, and it's a matter of finding time. By the time I get to the summer with this NBA stuff, it's like reintroduce myself to my family.
Yeah.
Hey guys, the dog's got to sniff my hand to know I'm not a stranger coming in the house. It's that kind of thing. So then I get that week, which is obviously, they don't exist. So by the time I get that done, I'm ready to grab some golf clubs and get to the beach and grab a margarita. So, but listen. It's going to happen. It's a matter of time. I have to, because the camp's bursting at the seams, man. And I hate saying no to any kid that wants to come learn, because I'm going to make you love the game more. When you walk in the gym on Monday morning, my entire goal is when you leave here on Thursday afternoon at 5 o'clock, my goal is you love it more. For whatever reason, that's the whole goal of a coach. Yeah, you're going to get smarter. I'm going to teach you a lot of ways to get better. Key is I'm going to make you love it more, because I'm going to inspire you and I'm going to teach you. And that's what it's all about at that age, man. And that's what I believe in. That's what my entire staff believes in.
Hey, whether you're, 15, 8, or, 50
you
years old.
You could be a high-level AAU player, or you could never have touched the basketball.
I love the game, but being around you, it makes me love it even more.
What can I say, man? It's been my life. It pumps through my veins. I'm a passionate dude, and I love this game so much. And when it's played the right way, it's the most beautiful sport ever created. And I try to pass that on, man. That's my goal and mission in life, is to pass it on to younger players, because I want it to be in good hands, because it's played the right way. There's just nothing better.
You're the best, brother. Thanks, buddy. We'll talk to you
All right.
next week. Love you,
Got
man.
it, Ant. All right, man.
The best. Tim Legler. Leg day.